Welcome to the Living a Nordic Life podcast, where we explore a simpler, cosier and more intentional life the Nordic way. I'm Fiona McKenna, your Nordic living guide and founder of Living a Nordic Life, where I share all things Nordic living and show you that a Nordic life is the way to bring intentional calm and healthy habits into your own life, wherever you are in the world. Are you looking for ways to bring simplicity, coziness and calm into your life? Well, let me show you how. Visit the Living a Nordic Life website to explore how I can help you on your journey to simple, healthy and happy calm, the Nordic way. You can subscribe to the podcast right here. And if you want regular inspirational emails sent with love from Norway and straight to your inbox, don't forget to subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters. And so now let's dive into our episode. Let's talk about Norse mythology. Actually, in particular, the Eddas and the epic that they are. The Nordic lands have long carried an aura of mystery. Cold seas, rugged landscapes, and deep forests created a world that naturally demanded stories. It was a long time ago, very isolated. The Nordic countries were isolated pretty much from many places in Europe. After the Vikings, certainly in medieval times, it wasn't considered anywhere worth exploring, particularly, up until, several hundred years ago. The Roman Catholic Church certainly didn't consider it worth sending anybody north here to kind of convert everybody to Christianity, and it was often not even mapped. But out of this environment came the Eddas, the great written records of Norse mythology. And they're more than just tales. They were survival maps of culture, memory, and identity. Even today, centuries after their compilation, they still shape how modern Nordic people see themselves and their place in the world. Mythology and the Nordic gods are still very important here. And there are echoes of those in modern culture. Norse mythology is preserved in the poetic and the prose Eddas. There are two of them, the poetic Eddas and the prose Eddas. And they were written in the 13th century, and they're Icelandic. But the mythology lives in symbols carved in jewellery, in political speeches that reference resilience. Sisu, you know what that is, don't you? That really great Finnish resilience. And in modern literature and in modern art. Odin's pursuit of wisdom, Thor's strength, and Loki's trickery remain more than just entertainment, although they are modern entertainment, aren't they? Think of all it's Marvel, isn't it? I was going to say DC, but it's not. The Marvel series, everything is about that. And they serve as metaphors for the struggles of modern life. They probably served as metaphors for the struggles of life back then as well, even more so, because it wouldn't have been as easy as we have it. A survey from a cultural foundation in Iceland found that over 70% of young respondents still see Norse mythology as an important part of national identity. And it's the same here in Norway. I'm not quite so sure what it's like in Sweden and Finland, but certainly here in Norway it's very important. People believe in some of these things, and it's an important part of how people see themselves and how they like the world to see them as a nation. It's not just about literal belief, but about symbolic relevance. The myths have transformed into cultural shorthand, bravery, endurance, cleverness, and above all, community. It's a very important part of Nordic culture, Nordic society. The sagas, if you've ever read the Icelandic sagas, they're dense. They're books and books and books. But they still attract curious readers. I think you have to be very dedicated to be able to read them. Maybe pick them up and read a little bit. But if you're new to Norse myths, it might seem overwhelming. Certainly for me, it's overwhelming. I'll read a little bit, but that's about it. But one approach is to balance mythological texts with something lighter, some lighter fiction. And I know that the readers amongst you probably do this already, that you might read more than one book at once. I do, especially if one is quite intense. And if you're reading something like that and you really want to study it, you do need to have a break, don't you? Exploring novels can provide narrative bridges into old worlds as well. Today it's easier than ever to read free novels online. We have so many things, don't we? On platforms like Kindle, Fiction Me. Have you ever looked at that one? That's a good. I'm going to put a link to that. But they offer opportunities to dive into myth-inspired fiction. How cool is that? And then you can go down a rabbit hole and do your own bit of research. And for readers on the go, the option to read novels online, so whenever you get 5 minutes, means that you can access it anywhere. In this way, both ancient and modern stories enrich one another. When people think of Nordic nations, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, their branding on the global stage often leans to mythological imagery, doesn't it? Just for a minute, think about a stave church, Norwegian stave church. It's like something out of a fairy tale, isn't it? And it might be something if somebody said to you, think of an image of Norway, mountains, stave church. But it's like something out of a fairy tale with all of its wooden building and the carving, and that carving that you get around the door, which is like dragons with intertwined tails, and it's amazing. Tourist boards, of course they're going to do this, invoke Vikings. Museums exhibit rune stones, and national days include echoes of legendary tales. The Eddas provide a foundation. They remind citizens that their shared history is not only about battles or politics, but also about stories. And where would our cultures be without stories? Where would our species be without stories? It's how we pass down knowledge. This deep connection explains why Nordic culture often emphasises resilience. You have to emphasise resilience in a place where you might have 6 months of snow and very cold weather. Ragnarok, the mythical apocalypse, presents destruction, but also renewal. It's not just an end, but a beginning. Modern Nordic identity, shaped by harsh climates and historic struggles, and epic journeys as well, Vikings, resonates with this idea. You endure, you rebuild, and you thrive. Storytelling is a social glue. Communities throughout the Nordic world use mythology to tie together past and present. Folk music draws on ancient chants, children's cartoons depict Thor and Freya in playful forms, and schools incorporate mythology into literature classes. I know from some of the stories that Mia studies, they talk about and they read at school, and at kindergarten, when the kids are quite young, there are a lot of quite dark fairy tales, I have to say. Mia finds it a little bit shocking because we don't read those kinds of things at home. But there's a lot about trolls and what they've done and what they've said and how they've behaved. And not all of it is particularly pleasant, I have to say, but it's always a story of resilience. Storytelling remains a way to preserve heritage. These things are being passed on, aren't they? Early. And to create unity in a rapidly globalising society. As lovely as it is to be able to connect with people anywhere in the world, regardless of who they are, where they are, what their culture is, what their language is, and I do this all the time, every day, it is still nice to remember our own personal culture. That's important to keep, because otherwise these things die out. And mythology doesn't live only in the classrooms. In a recent survey of Nordic museums, nearly 60% reported that their most visited exhibitions are those tied to Viking or mythological themes. I think Norway's most visited museum actually is the Viking Ship Museum. Of course, who would not want to go there? And if you go there and you look at not only the ships but also the things that the Vikings brought back from other places, because they were great lovers of art and culture and any kind of beautiful craftsmanship, you'll see that there is a lot of focus on mythological things and symbolism. Very beautiful. When it reopens in 2027, you must go and have a look. They're kind of upgrading everything a little bit. But you can see that myths serve not only as entertainment, but as a cultural glue, as they do in every society. Interesting, the digital age, let me get my words out, have not erased the old tales. They haven't, have they? Think about all the films that are focused on mythology. It's amplified them. It's amazing. Online communities create role-playing games inspired by the gods. Authors write myth-based novels online. And streaming services adapt sagas into series. If you haven't watched Ragnarok, go and watch it now. It's brilliant. And, of course, the Marvel film series with Thor. That's brilliant as well, isn't it? A little bit more glitzy, perhaps, than Ragnarok. But you do, if you watch Ragnarok as well, you do get to have a look at all the beautiful scenery around, because it is filmed on the west coast of Norway. Reading habits also shift. People increasingly choose to read novels online in addition to traditional paperbacks. So it makes it easier for people who are writing about mythology to actually get their work across. Because if you're writing and you're publishing online as an ebook, it's the same amount of work as it is if you put it on paper. I can promise you, because I've done both. And you are just as much an author. But platforms like Fiction Me, find it on Google Play, extend the reach of myth-inspired fiction. You can browse stories by ancient lore, but you can also enjoy some kind of fresh creations as well. And it's free. Go and have a look at it. Myths are symbols of resilience and global influence. Outside of Scandinavia, Norse mythology exerts global influence. Well, they're huge characters, aren't they? How could it not? And also very interesting. Comic books have turned Thor into a superhero, and Hollywood blockbusters have transformed Loki into a cultural icon, even though he's not very nice, is he really? He's mischievous, and he's the kind of god of chaos, really. Even video games. I don't play video games myself, I have to say. But there is a massive following of them. So what does it show? It shows that myths are flexible. They adapt. They can be adapted to modern life, to our own personal situations. And they live wherever imagination is needed. We do need imagination constantly. Don't ever let that go. For Nordic people, but though the connection is more personal. Myths aren't just about entertainment, but they're about how communities explain their identities to the world. The runes, the gods, the sagas, they're all part of Nordic cultural DNA. The epic of the Edda is not locked in the past. It's a living inheritance. How cool is that? They remain relevant because they embody timeless human concerns. Fear, that always unites us, doesn't it? Not necessarily in a positive way, but it does. Bravery, curiosity, betrayal, and hope. Nordic identity thrives on continuity, and myths ensure that continuity carries on across the generations. They remind people who they were, who they are, and who they might become. And that doesn't matter where you are either. If you have Nordic DNA, this applies to you too. It's part of your cultural DNA, and I'm sure you probably already know that. So whether in a classroom in Reykjavik, a festival in Oslo, or a digital novel read on a train in Stockholm, Edda's spirit endures. Myths shift and change, but they never disappear through time, reminding Nordic societies that their strength has always come from stories, and it will continue to come from stories. And I will see you in the next episode. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters so you can get an email when I release a new episode. It's a quick and easy way to keep up with all things Nordic living. please visit livinganordiclife.com. You can listen to Living a Nordic Life on lots of podcast apps, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and plenty of others. If you've enjoyed the Living a Nordic Life podcast, why not leave me a rating? So that's the end of Living a Nordic Life for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.